Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast, and welcome to another episode of The Return. This is the third installment of a series that I'm doing documenting exactly what I did, what I went through, the struggles that I faced, and the wins that I've had as I get myself back into peak performance, both mentally and physically, as I'm recovering postpartum. I had a baby just over 4 months ago, and I'm feeling really good, and I wanted to share exactly what that process was with you for getting my body back in shape and getting my energy back and fixing my sleep and all of the different things. So like I said, this is the third part, and you are more than welcome to listen to this episode. I would be happy to have you listen in. However, if you do want to listen to the first two episodes where I started at the beginning, episode 52 and 58 are episode 1 and 2. And basically, this podcast is inspired by the return like I said, that I'm going to be going through, and I intend this to be a process that I go through over the next year as I optimize my brain and my body. And I'm using the exact techniques that I use with my clients and that I use with myself to create energy, focused, and highly productive days. And I'm doing it with 2 kids, one of them being a newborn. Now, why is it so important that I share this with you? I find that there are so many people in honestly any space online, but particularly the health space, that preach and say a lot of the stuff that they teach, but they don't do it. So this podcast is part of this series, is you being able to have a look into my world at what I am actually doing and implementing, and the research that I've done, and the struggles that I've had, and the clients that I've shared this with, and to see that I speak from experience on these things, and I always coach from having done the research, done it myself, and then I work with it on clients, and then it makes it to you where you get to learn and apply these things into your life. So I think that integrity is such an important part, that I am walking the walk and talking the talk. And so you are joining me on my journey, and it is keeping me as focused as ever. Now, I do have a free checklist that has been going along with these return episodes, because I started the journey with a list of habits that I was like, I want to try all of these and see which ones are the best fit for me, my energy, and my lifestyle. And I called that my Becoming Limitless Habit Checklist. Now, if you want to go grab that checklist completely for free, I want you to jump over to my Instagram at Tanessa Shears and message me the word return. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a free copy of that PDF. There's no opt-in or anything. I'll just share it with you, but you got to come over to Instagram and DM me the word return, and I will send it directly to you. And I know you're going to love it. I have knocked down so many of the habits on that list, and I've got a couple more to go too. So let's jump in. I started, like I said, the return about 3.5 months ago, because I did wait to start it until a couple weeks postpartum. So I started it, I think, 2 weeks postpartum. So we're 3.5 months in. I started it at 12.2 pounds above my target weight. And I chose the starting weight because, if you've ever had a baby or know someone that's had a baby, when you initially have that baby, you drop all of this weight off just from literally giving birth to the baby, and, fluid levels drop. So I didn't count any of that because I feel like that's just something you naturally go through. So I let my weight stabilize, and then I was like, okay, we're going to start here at 2 weeks postpartum. So I was 12.2 pounds above my pre-pregnancy weight. Fun news now, I am now 2 pounds under my pre-pregnancy weight, which I am celebrating because I have been working hard at that. So I am a total of 14.2 pounds down in 3.5 months, which is making me really excited. I've been moving a ton, feeling really good, clear, very well energized. And considering, that my baby is still up once a night, I'm feeling really good. I feel like I've gotten a hang on this, and I'm feeling pretty in control. But this episode is going to be a little different from the last two, because I am now encountering some of the totally normal things that happen in a health journey. And I wanted to show you the struggles that I've actually been having, to show you how normal it is to have hiccups and speed bumps in your health journey, right? That's why this lesson is all about how to learn from failure, because I bombed pretty hard on some things in the last couple of weeks. And I want to share kind of how I've moved through those, how I've learned from them, and how I'm changing directions moving forward based on what I've learned. And like I've said, there have been a ton of success stories and wins, and I'm feeling good. And so I always first make sure to celebrate that, what is going very well, right? I feel good in my body, energy's good, sleep's good. I celebrate that first, right? But then I also look at what's not working. And I do call that failure, and I don't have a problem with that word failure. So that's the first thing I want you to take away from this is the mindset I have around failure. When I work with clients, we have this really interesting idea that if we fail, it means we are a loser, or we didn't achieve anything, or we didn't get our results, or we're not good enough, or we don't want to fail because then that's a waste of time, or it shouldn't happen. I don't have a problem with failing. In fact, I welcome it because that is when I do my biggest learning. The only failure I have a problem with is when we quit, because that is when we don't do any learning and we let the failure be the end of our story. I just think of it like this. This is a great analogy. Like, let's pretend right now you get in your car to go grocery shopping, all right? And when you go on the road and you hit a stop sign because you have to stop at an intersection, or you hit a red light, you do not get frustrated and be like, what the heck? I didn't expect to hit a red light or a stop sign, and turn your car around and go home without groceries. That's just not the case, right? What do you end up doing? You hit the stoplight, you wait, and it is a bit of a pause in the journey, but then you keep moving forward, and then maybe you hit another stop sign, or you hit a green light, and it's really exciting. That's a win. You celebrate. But I want you to keep in mind that we don't have the expectation when we leave the house that like, oh my gosh, I'm going to head all the way to the grocery store and, hit green lights the whole way. We don't expect that. So why do we expect that in our health journey, right? Those failures or those red lights that come up are just learning opportunities, and they are not opportunities for us to take that as failure, literally, meaning we are worthless and quit, all right? I am moving forward. I am always learning from the failure. And here's a really interesting thing. Some of us avoid failure so intensely because the feeling is so uncomfortable in our bodies, meaning the feeling of the shame around it, or the guilt for not doing it, or wasting money or time. That feeling of failure is so intense that we avoid it by not even getting started. And that I call quitting ahead of time, meaning like if I chose not to even bother to start an exercise program because I don't want to fail at it again, I'm just guaranteeing my result of not achieving it, and I'm quitting before I even start, quitting ahead of time, right? I would much rather start it, experience a road bump, and then have to figure it out, right? I do not want to quit ahead of time just because of a feeling, and I have very much lived my life by this mantra. If there is no feeling that I am not willing to feel, what can I achieve? Because if we are making the decisions for our health based on avoiding the feeling of failure, we don't like that feeling. I mean, think about this. You're actually avoiding moving forward with your health because you are uncomfortable experiencing something in your body. Tight stomach, shallow breathing, maybe flushed face, like, you know what I mean? It's a feeling. It's not going to kill you. And we avoid making decisions for the benefit of our futures long term because we don't want to feel a feeling in the short term. It's silly. There is no feeling that I am not willing to feel. And if that means I need to feel disappointed or like I didn't win every single time I did it, bring it on. It is just a feeling. It cannot hurt me. That is why I have what I believe is very well-developed consistency and discipline, is because I know that this feeling is just part of the process. It's the red light on the way to the grocery store. It's not when I quit, right? This is the step most people miss. This is when people quit. They feel the feeling of failure or disappointment or shame or guilt or whatever that feeling is that you're really not liking. And you decide that it is so terrible that you quit instead of continuing going for fear of having to feel it again and again. Well, what if you just decided that this was part of the process and it is uncomfortable, but we do it anyways, right? That is the mindset I have always used about failure. And I take pride in feeling like I am one of the most persistent people that I know. I mean, back when I started my online business back in 2017, I remember my very first year, I made $500. That was it. Right? My second year, I don't think it was much more than that. And it wasn't until I started getting the hang of it, but my persistence saw me through to where now I can have multiple 5-figure months, right? Like that is what saw me through, is that ability to tolerate that discomfort around being consistent even when it doesn't feel good. And that is a lesson that, I mean, if you haven't learned it yet, I really invite you to think about what I have said, how you can apply it to you, and being willing to go up against that discomfort when it shows up at your door next time. So now let's jump into the lessons that I have learned. And like I said, this has been the hardest segment of the return so far, as I'm, really trying to ramp up my performance again and become the entrepreneur and have the vision in my head of the CEO that is in peak health, and with my family and my 2 little girls while running a very successful business. This is in my head, right? Like, I want to achieve that. But the last 4 to 6 weeks, I finally kind of feel like I've gotten back in my groove, but I lost my direction about a month and a half ago in late August. So that is why I titled this episode, like, How to Learn from Failure, because I want you to see what I failed at, the lessons I took, and how I'm moving forward. So I've got 5 lessons that I have learned, and let's start from the top. So lesson number 1, if you listen to the last episode of The Return, you'll notice, and what I noticed in retrospect, is that when I had set the goals for that episode of what I was going to be doing going forward, so from last episode to this episode, so last 6-7 weeks, I had said to myself, yeah, I'm just gonna, I've done all my no sugar, no flour challenges. I'm eating really well. I haven't really decided what I'm gonna do moving forward, but I know I'm just gonna eat healthy. And what ended up happening, I didn't have clearly defined boundaries with myself, and I didn't define clearly what the goals were around how I wanted to eat. And I just thought, I'm just going to be healthy. But I found my brain is very sneaky. I pushed the boundaries too often, and it resulted in me not feeling my best. I noticed, and I want to preface this by saying that just because this is a lesson for me does not mean it is the only or the right way to do it. This is what worked for me in my situation. So I said to myself, I am going to only, allow myself to eat off-plan and unhealthy foods if I plan it 24 hours in advance. But I noticed my brain started being like, yes, well, you're going to have it tomorrow. And it was planned in advance, and the day after that. And I didn't set any boundaries around like how often I would allow that to happen, right? So I found I was eating more sugar, more processed foods that contained a lot of flour, and I was not feeling my best. I felt my mood changing. I felt my energy was a little more cyclical. It wasn't as stable as usual. I found my brain a little foggy. Found I wasn't sleeping as well. And because I gave myself nothing to measure my progress against, my brain told me it was a free pass. Not the case. So what ended up happening here, how I corrected for this, is I realized that my brain works very well with very clear boundaries. Now, I know some people will say, well, that feels so restrictive. Restrictive is just a thought, because a set of food items that we eat in a week is neutral. One person might think it's wonderful, they love it. One person might think it's restrictive. So it's not the food in itself and those choices that is restrictive. It's actually just the person's thought about the food. So I choose to think that healthy eating is never restrictive. I love it and the way it makes me feel, but I've noticed that my brain needs guidelines, and I love that and I thrive under that. So how I have set this up going forward is I am like, okay, I looked ahead at the month of October and I was like, okay, my husband's birthday is on the 19th and Halloween is at the end of the month, and I'm going trick-or-treating with my little girls. Those are going to be my 2 exceptions for the month. And beyond that, I am sticking to eating no sugar, no flour. That feels really good for me. I feel in control. I am moving towards my goals. Will I change it in the future? Probably, maybe, don't know. Right now, I like to always have the path laid out in front of me, and it makes me feel really good. So that was lesson 1. I wasn't clear enough leaving last episode on what I was doing, and I used that as a free pass to get a little messy. Okay, lesson number 2. I noticed over the last little bit that my work stress had begun to increase. I was working 12-hour days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, working half days on Thursday, working Fridays at lunch, all over the place. I launched a new offer. I onboarded 5 new clients. This was beginning of September, really finding that the work was picking up. I noticed that I was feeling a little more on edge than usual. I was getting that fight or flight feeling. that is when I implemented my nervous system reset day. And you'll notice if you listen to last week's episode on the nervous system reset day, that goes through the process of how I actually in detail problem solved that entire thing. So I no longer feel on edge, but I also made a couple of different changes. So I noticed the stress. And I honestly think in retrospect that it was that stress that was contributing to some of the eating that wasn't planned. Like why I was making the decision to have more food than I like junk food is because I was like, well, it's kind of helping to mitigate the stress instead of actually just solving the stress problem. So I solved the stress problem. So I sat down with my husband and I was like, okay, something needs to change. Doing this many days of long, intense days in a row is grating on my nervous system. What can we do? So I actually switched it up. I now work Sundays and Mondays. I take Tuesdays entirely off to be with my family. And then I work again Wednesday and Thursday so that I have a Friday, Saturday break and I have a Tuesday break. And this has helped so much in terms of like, honestly, the pressure and stress on my husband to be with the kids all that time without a break and me being in my business all the time without a break. It has been fantastic. So while this may go through future iterations, I looked at my schedule and I was like, okay, if stress is causing some of my other habits to become less consistent, what can I do to fix my stress? And it started with changing my work schedule. So the other thing I did was, in addition to that, I now have implemented these nervous system reset days, like I said, last week's podcast episode, and I've done a bunch of them now. And originally, like I said, I was testing them as tech-free days. Like that was the goal I was working for, was having tech-free days every week. But I needed more direction than that as well, because I was like, what the heck does tech-free? Can I read on my Kindle? Am I allowed to listen to music? Like, what if I want to cuddle up and watch a movie with my family? Like, so I actually scratched out tech-free days and decided instead to do the days as nervous reset days, something that actually reset who I am, my soul, my energy, made me feel refreshed, right? So like I said, if you are feeling a little on edge and stressed, go listen to last week's episode. You will love it. Nervous system reset days. So that was lesson number 2, work stress increase. Needed to come up with some solutions. They're now in play. I'm feeling much better. Lesson number 3, I noticed that I was off plan eating. So we're going to go back to the clearly defined goals thing. I noticed that I was eating more of the junk food and stuff like that. And my cravings were coming at a similar time every day. And I've experienced this before, but I've been paying a lot more attention now. So what I would ask you to ask yourself is, are your cravings, or when you are most likely to have a glass of wine or eat off plan or stay up late, do they come after certain triggers, right? So I noticed they would always come in the afternoon after I finished work. So if I'd wrap up at 1 o'clock, by 2 o'clock, I'd have a raging craving to have like something that would comfort me, right? And I noticed that this kept happening, and we had already addressed the work schedule thing. And I was talking to one of my girlfriends, Kate, actually, who I had on the podcast maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, the episode on intentional morning routines and family time with Kate Saffel. And I was talking to her and I was like, I can't figure out what's going on right now. And she said, like, girl, you are having an identity shift right now. You have gone through so many big life changes in such a short period of time right now. And you haven't figured out who you are in this new version of you yet. And I really sat down and thought about this. And just to kind of bring you guys in the loop a little bit, like since I've had my baby January 1st, my husband has officially retired from his job. Like he is now staying at home, helping me in my business with many of the videography tasks. He does a lot of captions for the reels that you'll see. He does podcast editing, and he's also starting his own business in addition to really helping me out with my kids and making sure that someone's watching them. So he came home and he is now retired, and like having that experience of now being home with someone all day when I used to be by myself, right? On top of the fact that I'm a new mom again, adjusting to that and what this life is looking like together. I'm also now the primary income earner, which is another identity shift I had to go through. And what Kate recommended to me is you guys just, you need to like talk about this new identity that you're having. And I was like, oh, no wonder everything feels so off. And on top of all that, I've lost a whole bunch of weight. I'm active again. I have all these new habits back in my life. I am a completely different person in a different place of life than I was 6 months ago. I just haven't redecided on my identity. So what we did to fix this is my husband and I, we went and sat out on the back deck one morning and we had a very deep conversation about who we wanted to be as parents and what we wanted to teach our two girls, because this is at the center of why I run a business, of why we retired him so that he could be home and not miss first steps, first words, first days of ballet, right? Who do we want to be in all of this? And center our identities and what we show our girls around what we came up with. So we decided that the main things, at this point in our parenting journey that we want to instill in our girls is I want them to feel empowered to do anything they want. And they are strong and their emotions are under their control and they're not the responsibility of other people and their thoughts are their control and their circumstances do not cause how they feel in their life. And I want them to feel confident. That is what we are centering everything, all our decisions around is, does it move us closer to that or further away? And we also decided that we want them to outgrow us in the way we outgrew our parents, meaning our parents only taught us so much. Neither of us come from entrepreneurial backgrounds. Neither of us come from backgrounds where investing heavily in ourselves and in the market and financial literacy was a skill that was, I guess, very important, right? So we outgrew our parents and we want our girls to be able to outgrow us. But we've also decided we're going to make it really hard to outgrow us as well because we don't plan on stopping. So what we ended up coming to was that I needed this specific type of support in taking on that primary income role, meaning I would need extra help with the girls and knowing that we have a financial safety net to catch us. That's going to make it fun. And so we really needed to have all these things in place, and our portfolio, our investment portfolio, it supports our entire lifestyle. So meaning everything I make in my business is completely for fun and I don't have to work anymore. And we've set ourselves up in this place. So this conversation with my husband, basically about how are we making our decisions now? Who are we? What support do we each need in our new roles? How can this help us function better as a family unit? So if you notice, for example, that something is feeling off, or you have shifted into a new identity, or you have taken on all these health habits, but it doesn't feel like it's 100% you can't figure it out, have that moment to sit down and talk about who you want to be in this new version of yourself, this version of you that eats well, sleeps well, exercises. Maybe you're the primary income earner, starting a new business, whatever it is. Sometimes it just takes that sit down to really decide the identity on purpose instead of having it feel like you're feeling a little bit lost. Lesson number 4 was something that I had to learn about letting go of perfection control. And this is something that I talk about with my clients over and over again. So recently we transitioned our daughter out of her sleep swaddle because she learned how to roll over. It was kind of fun. We were all having a family workout and she rolled over for the first time during the family workout. It felt very appropriate. We all celebrated her. We all felt like we were, improving our bodies and learning new skills. And it was really funny. Anyway, so we have to now have her in a sleep sack, which has her arms out instead of something that keeps her arms tucked into her, which naturally means our sleep went a little bit sideways. She was waking up a lot more frequently as she was getting used to this different way of sleeping now with a different type of blanket on. So our sleep went a little bit sideways. I was getting some more sleep in the barely reaching 7-hour range when I'm used to 7 hours, 45, even to 8 hours and beyond of solid sleep every night. So I noticed that it was affecting just my energy during the day because I wasn't sleeping as well. So I knew that she would move through this, but it was something that I had to adjust for in the meantime so it did not affect my business, because her not sleeping through the night is not something I can control. What I can control is what I do about it. So I added more sliding blocks to my week in case I needed to nap. So when I'm looking at my work schedule and my work week, I would leave some blocks of work intentionally unplanned, meaning I didn't put, pitch for podcast interviews, post on Instagram, answer my DMs. Like I didn't put that stuff in my to-do list. I left it blank in the event that I needed a nap. Like legitimately, if I needed a nap, that was all that was left open for. So looking at how I can create time to account for the fact that this is a transition period, right? I also learned to give myself grace over things I could not control, meaning I recognized that this was not something I was doing wrong, and it had to be okay that there would be days that I was more tired than others, and really releasing that perfectionist mentality that I had to hit 7.5 hours sleep each night, because that was the target that I had set for myself as part of this return. Is I wanted 7.5 hours of time asleep, even if that meant napping, even if that meant having extra time to sleep in the morning, because I know how much that affects my ability to be productive in my business. So during this transition time, I had to let go of the fact that sometimes 6.5 hours is going to have to be good enough, and feeling tired is okay sometimes, and nothing has gone wrong. Now let's move on to the last lesson number 5. The things that I have learned from the failure that I have experienced over this last section of the return is I am now, like I said at the beginning, I'm 2 pounds below pre-pregnancy weight. Although if I'm going to be really frank about that, I've lost some muscle mass too, and I've still got a little bit higher body fat than usual. So my body composition isn't the same. However, here's the point. I'm 2 pounds below pre-pregnancy weight, and I have noticed this really sneaky thought that I have, and it sounds like this. I don't need to lose weight. This is fine. I can eat this. I don't need to lose weight right now. It's okay. I'm just going to skip this workout. It's okay. You know what I mean? So my brain has been using the fact that I am below my pre-pregnancy weight as a really good hot button reason for why I don't need to be as consistent. And everyone has these thoughts. Like if I asked you right now, think about the last time you talked yourself into eating something you didn't intend on eating, or a workout that you skipped, or you stayed up past your bedtime. What did you tell yourself that convinced you to do it, right? I call this your brain's powerful thought. Like it is the thought, and I think it's like your hot button. Your brain knows if I push this button, this is the thought that will get her or him to be less consistent, to go off plan. And that's always it for me. It's like, hey, you don't need to lose any weight. It's fine. It's just this one thing. And it's causing me to do behaviors and actions that I don't love. And I recognize this as an excuse. That's all it is. It is an excuse that my brain is offering me for why I don't need to be consistent. I don't need to buy it. But the first thing we have to do is recognize that. And everyone has that thing. I want you to really recognize, what is the excuse that you use most frequently? Where does your brain go? What's the hot button that it pushes that gets you off track? You need to be able to be aware of what it is so that you hear it. So now every time I hear my brain tell me, but Tanessa, you look great. You don't need to lose weight. I'm like, this is exactly the BS I'm not listening to anymore. This is a red flag that I need to watch out for so that I stay on track. So the other thing about this is, like, if I start listening to that excuse in my brain, this is not what I want to teach my kids. And becoming a parent, so much of what I do now is like a reflection of what I want to teach my kids, right? And I do not want to teach my kids generational excuses. I do not want to pass them down the idea that giving into our excuses at the expense of the life we want is normal. Because for me, I don't want that. I want to teach my children generational health. I want them to see me work out, see me eat well, see me be celebrating my wins and celebrating my health and being able to do cool things like, have the energy to go to the park at the end of the night, go hiking on a moment's notice and not feeling like I need to be fit to do that. Like, I want to teach my kids that. I don't want to teach them the excuses that I give myself and why I don't do it. I want to role model that, right? It's not what I want for myself. It's what I feel like doing in the moment. That's the only reason that excuse is there, to indulge that feeling of doing it in the moment. It's not what I want for my life. So you have to practice that awareness. And this comes back to my failure number 1 of why I need to give myself goals and parameters so that I can hold my behaviors and my thoughts up against who I want to be and make an assessment when I'm pushing the boundaries or when I'm moving towards that ideal me or away from me. And if I don't set those boundaries, it doesn't happen. So the 5 failures I've had is I didn't define my goals. That was something I messed up on. My work stress got out of hand because I had overworked. I figured that out. Number 3 is that my identity had shifted and was causing me to, at the end of the day, feel like I needed to eat to buffer away that feeling. I had to let go of the perfectionist mentality of always hitting 7.5 hours sleep when there was something that was outside of my control. And lastly, really learning how that thought, I don't need to lose weight, has been disrupting my progress. And now that I hear it, I am not tolerating it anymore. So, speaking of what's been going on since episode 58, the last episode of The Return, here's what I have been doing as far as the little habits that I have been implementing. Like I said, I'd keep you up to date on that. So I have been consistently doing my 3 workouts per week at minimum, and minimum 20 minutes. So they have been strength-based workouts where I am working on building back in my muscle mass. They're not as long as I would like. Honestly, I know to build the muscle mass that I see in my head that I want for myself, I am going to have to be doing longer workouts. But at this phase in my life with 2 small kids and a growing business, it's just not the top priority right now. So my priority is more for my health, is that I am lifting weights and I am committing to showing up for at least 20 minutes. Honestly, 2 of those end up being closer to 40 minutes, but that's what I've been committed to doing. I'm also doing Strike, Stroll, Shiver 5 times a week. I did an episode all on the science behind how that helps speed up metabolism, burn more fat, help with attention, focus, and clarity. I did that maybe 2 weeks ago now. That episode, look for it. It's called Strike, Stroll, Shiver on the podcast. That has been helping wonderfully. I will not let that go. I love it. I've been keeping up with my 7.5 hours sleep. I've consistently been doing bi-weekly meal preps and grocery shops and not doing shops in between unless we need to pick up like bananas because they went bad or something. And I've been doing my morning walks, and that is part of the Strike, Stroll, Shiver biohack that I've been doing, but really enjoying at least 5 mornings a week, getting out for a minimum of 10, usually maximum of 20 minutes by myself, listening to a podcast that I love, getting that morning light exposure, waking up my brain. Now, the other thing that I didn't set it a habit, but I noticed what I have been doing are post-Prandial walks. What the heck is that? So after dinner, it's about 5 nights a week, I've actually realized. I look back, I didn't even notice this had become a habit. My husband, my 2 girls, and we go out for a 20-minute walk. It's just a lap around the neighborhood. It's over 1 kilometer. We do that almost nightly after dinner. Now, the science behind this is when you eat a meal and then you move afterwards, what it does is it blunts the blood sugar spike from the carbs you eat. So for example, if I'd have just eaten a normal meal, I'd have sat down on the couch, my blood sugar goes up, and because I am not moving, a lot more of that is going to be stored as body fat, right? But when you actually engage in movement for even as little as 5 minutes after eating a meal, your body is much better able to tolerate the blood sugar. And the reason for that, you don't need to know this, but when you do some type of movement or exercise post-meal, there is a receptor called GLUT4 in the muscle tissue that is upregulated to the top of the muscle cell, which allows more blood sugar to come into the muscle and be used as energy as opposed to stored as fat. So we do these walks, and actually they've kind of turned into this really notorious thing that we do. And we have family members that'll drive over to our house just to join in for the evening walk. Like my sister will come, or my husband's sisters, or our parents will come by, and they'll just come for this walk. It has become such a beautiful way to touch base with our family, spend time outside. It helps program our circadian rhythm that bedtime is coming. I think it's really helped me trim down a lot. So a 20-minute post-prandial walk after dinner, 5 nights a week, that's been pretty consistent. And as I have mentioned, the things that I struggled with, my habits that I had set for myself, or maybe kind of didn't set, was I struggled with whole food consistency, meaning, not eating added sugars or processed foods or flour, because I didn't really have a specific goal. I did let my physio exercises drop off, but I'm also experiencing a lot less pain. So I do feel that is correlated to that, and I don't really think I expect to do my physio exercises forever. So that has dropped off. So that's kind of what's been happening. Now, here are the very specific goals I have going forward. I'm not playing that game last time where I'm just leaving it up to chance. So I still believe in my assessment that I have about 5 pounds of fat to lose to get to where I want to be. Although now I am not in a rush to get there. I wasn't in a rush before, but now I'm just like, if this happens, great. If it doesn't, that's fine, because I'm also finding that I need some time to stabilize in this new body I'm in. I am down 14.2 pounds of fat. And so I'm okay if I stay here for a while right now and just get used to what it takes to maintain this, right? Because nothing I'm doing is crazy or unsustainable. This is just my lifestyle now. So I know that I'm going to have no problem maintaining this. I just like to let my body stabilize here. So what I am also adding in is, instead of doing strike, stroll, shiver 5 times a week, which involves a fasted walk in the morning and then a cold shower, I am now changing that to 11 minutes of deliberate cold exposure per week. And I'm dividing this into at least 3 bouts. So what this has been looking so far is that I need to take at least 11 minutes worth of cold showers in a week. And this is the minimum threshold that is associated with many of the metabolic and energy and focus-based benefits that I did talk about in that episode, Strike, Stroll, Shiver. Now, I am splitting it up into 3 bouts. What it tends to look like and the pattern that's been developing over the couple weeks, I do 4 to 5 minutes on Monday, 4 to 5 minutes on Wednesday, and then sometime on the weekend, I'll do 3 or 4 minutes, and that gets me well over my 11 minutes of deliberate cold exposure. I am consistently doing 10 minutes of morning movement 5 times per week. What this is looking like is I do that same lap that I do in the evening walking. I do that in the morning by myself, put a podcast in, usually takes me between 12 and 15 minutes. That's the goal. Honestly, I like to get outside. If I end up doing it on the spin bike, that's fine. But the goal is to get outside as often as possible. Again, continuing with 7.5 hours of sleep, bi-weekly grocery shops, all of that. I am making this shift of, I'm doing 3 20-minute workouts, and now I'm adding in just doing some mobility and stretch. So I want to do one day where I spend some time, 5-10 minutes doing mobility and stretch work on my hip. And at this point, I'm pretty much back to doing everything workout-wise except for weighted lower body stuff, jumping and running, obviously, because I'm still postpartum. But I'm basically doing just a lot of strength, upper body. I'm really looking at developing the muscle and the strength back in my upper body so that I can see some of the definition that I used to have that's missing. So that is another goal. I have 2 more that I have added to my list. One is that I have 1 nervous system reset per week, and I'm doing that ideally as a full day where I have a full nervous system reset. I'm doing this proactively to help keep me centered and helping me roll into my business week feeling very calm and focused and energized and creative. So I'm doing that. If you want to hear my process for this, listen to last week's episode. And then the other one I've actually implemented is I am putting my phone away after 4 p.m. for work and Instagram. I mean, if someone wants to call me or text me, that's fine. But I am leaving my work phone with work and Instagram and email and Slack and Voxer and all of the things in my office and spending that time 100% focused on my family. So that is what I'm working on right now. This has been a little bit of a longer episode, but I really wanted you to, the whole purpose of this podcast and the return and everything I'm going through is because I wanted you to see what it looks like when you are watching from the outside of a real person going through a health journey and the struggles I have even as someone whose business is teaching health. I want you to see that it is not perfection. I want you to see that there is struggle and how I move through those things and how I layer habits in and how I make it sustainable and how I make it measurable, how I hold myself accountable, how I keep it fun, right? If that makes sense, that is what the essence of the return is I wanted to make this journey accessible and practical. I don't want you to be out there looking on Instagram at health influencers and saying they have it all together. It must be so easy. I want you to see that there is struggle in this and that there are wins in this and that consistency pays off and that small things over time pays off. And yes, you can do 20 minutes of workouts and still see results. And yes, you can make walking effective for you. And yes, you can prioritize your sleep even if you have a baby up at night crying, right? The goal of this is to inspire you to start your own journey alongside with me, your own return, whatever that looks like for you, wherever you are starting, whether you started where I was at ground zero, having not done anything healthy for a couple of months, or you're already way ahead of where I am now and you're looking at what you can do to get to the next level. So I hope this has continued to be helpful. Again, I'll probably put out another episode in a month or two outlining what's been going on, and keep going for at least the first year to show you that what happens when you have long-term vision for yourself and you look a year out, you extend the timeline, you stop being in a rush. It's amazing how much can happen when you are not worried about getting your results today. So if this episode has been helpful, please share it with a friend, send it to someone you love. Come on Instagram at Tanessa Shears, DM me, tell me what you learned, or share it on your Instagram stories. You know I always love to hear all that kind of stuff. And if you need help bringing a plan that you have in your head, or maybe you even need help developing the plan, if you need help bringing that to life so that you can effectively be in your family, running your business, and feel like a healthy CEO, even when it feels like you have so much on your plate, DM me on Instagram. Book a consultation call and let me talk to you about how I can help you get everything up and running and simplify it and help you integrate it into your life. And of course, if you're wanting to know about what my program is about, just stay through to the outro here. I have a whole bunch of my clients sharing their experiences on what they love, what they learned, and why this is something that if you've been on the fence about, you need to take action now. But regardless, I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you for listening into episode 3 of The Return, and I will talk to you next week. Bye. Hey, if you're hearing me right now, you might be an entrepreneur who feels like this.
Every single thing I had was going into my businesses, and there was no room left for me. And that means I wasn't eating right. My stress levels were just off the charts.
And I was getting these headaches, and I just felt like my health was not where it could be, where it should be.
Every day, I woke up really tired, and actually all day long I was tired and I couldn't understand why, and this was really in the way of my productivity.
I gained 20 pounds in 1 year, and that's mostly because of work stress. I've never seemed to have the control over my own health.
This podcast will help you with all of that. I'm sharing everything I know and everything I'm learning about how to get healthy, optimize your focus, and eliminate brain fog for faster business growth. But if you want someone to take all of these strategies, create a simple plan, and help you bring it to life with weekly coaching, I'd love to work with you in my Becoming Limitless program. This is the high-touch, intensive program that I have created to coach entrepreneurs like you to get back on track with their health, get really good sleep, and start waking up feeling well-rested.
The biggest impact was really around overall well-being and sleep. So I started tracking my sleep, and it was very data-driven what we did. And I saw measurable progress and improvement week to week, month to month. Now I prioritize sleep. I have my whole family on a better sleep schedule.
You'll get my expert eyes on what you eat and help you develop a simple plan that sticks.
Well, she helped me really figure out what works for me nutrition-wise. It's not just like some cookie cutter plan. It's let's figure out what works best for your body and just optimize everything so I can show up at my best for my family, for my business, and just feel good.
And of course, have you showing up to your business with clear, focused thinking so you can scale your business faster.
Both my companies have grown over the last 2 years.
I'm waking up more energized, and I'm able to be more productive in my business.
You're going to learn how to optimize your brain and your body using a combination of wearable technology, accountability, science-based biohacks, and weekly personalized coaching. I'm not only going to share what to do, but I'm going to teach you how to be consistent and develop the self-discipline that keeps this going for the rest of your life.
Coaching is where the magic really happens, because without coaching, you'll end up right where you started, because those blocks and those underlying patterns that got you here are still there. You have to really rewire the way you think, and that's what Tanessa hopes you do. And it's good to have somebody who's got your back, who will hold you accountable, and who will help you work through this process together.
I help you become a human being instead of just a human doing. You get to have your health and a successful business too. It doesn't have to be a choice.
So she really taught me a lot about how to balance being an entrepreneur and a business owner, and also not sacrifice my health.
Yep, you can use the gold mine of information in these free episodes of the Becoming Limitless podcast to help you take control of your health, and you will feel more vibrant. But if you want, you can outsource your health to me and put your brain power back on growing your business. If you're ready to commit to upgrading your health and start feeling more energized within the next couple of months, click the link in the show notes and book in a consultation call with me.
My life today is not even recognizable with the life I had a year ago. And that's because of everything that Tanessa has put into the program. So if you're on the fence, get off the fence. Your future self will thank you for it.
Highly suggest working with Tanessa.
I would highly suggest doing a consultation call with her, doing her program, seeing what she's about, and seeing if she's a good fit for you, because she is definitely committed to her clients and she definitely knows what she's talking about.
So go work with Tanessa. She's really amazing and she's going to help you get your energy back.
Hit the link in the show notes and book in to talk with me about your health, and I'll see you on our first call.